After months of disapproval, my husband's parent arranged a family emergency to prevent our wedding. My husband said we should postpone. I smiled, held up my plane ticket, and said, "That's fine, because I'm getting married with or without you." Their shocked silence was priceless. I, 28 female, was dating Ethan, 30 male, for a little over 2 years when we decided to get married. I thought everything was going well until I met his family. Ethan's parents, Meredith and Charles, are what you'd call old money. They live in a mansion in a fancy part of town, always dressed to the nines, and act like the world revolves around them. I come from a working-class background, single mom, blue-collar neighborhood, and we barely scraped by sometimes. So, yeah, our worlds didn't exactly align. From the moment I met them, I could tell they didn't like me. Meredith was especially cold. She'd look me up and down like I was some kind of charity case. Charles, her husband, didn't say much, but you could tell from the way he looked at me that he wasn't thrilled about his son marrying someone like me. But Ethan? He was perfect. He was the one. And I thought if we just kept pushing through, things would get better with his family. I was wrong. As we got deeper into wedding planning, the tension between me and his parents only grew. Every time we discussed the wedding, I felt their judgment in every word. They hated our venue, the catering, the guest list. You name it, they found a reason to criticize it. But the worst part? Ethan didn't stand up to them. There were days when it felt like I was fighting a battle I couldn't win. Ethan would say things like, "You know how my mom is, she just wants the best for us." But honestly, it felt like a cop-out. Despite everything, we were still moving forward with the wedding. Or so I thought. 3 days before the wedding, Ethan got the phone call. I was out running some last-minute errands, picking up a few things for our trip to Savannah, when Ethan called. He sounded weird, almost panicked. "Hey, I need to talk to you," he said. "My dad, he's in the hospital. It's a really bad situation." I froze. "What do you mean? What happened?" "He's been having chest pains all morning. I'm heading over there right now. I think we need to put everything on hold." "What?" "Wait, hold on. Ethan, we're getting married in 3 days." "What are you talking about?" "I don't know," he said. "Mom's really upset. I think we need to postpone the wedding. It's not the right time." I felt the blood drain from my face. Something didn't feel right, but I didn't know what. I told him to go, that I'd handle everything and make arrangements to meet him in Savannah. But even as I said the words, a voice in the back of my mind kept nagging me. This was too convenient. That night, I didn't just sit around and wait for answers. I called the hospital. I didn't lie or try to manipulate the situation. I simply asked for an update on Charles. And guess what? He wasn't even admitted. There was no record of him being in the hospital at all. At this point, I was beyond confused. I didn't know if this was some weird prank or if Ethan was genuinely in the dark. But I didn't buy it. So I did what any reasonable person would do. I called Ethan. "Ethan," I said, my voice calm but shaking. "I just called the hospital. Your dad is fine." "He's not in there at all." "What's going on?" He went silent. A long silence. Then, "No, that can't be right. He's in there. He has to be. I don't know what's going on, but you need to call and ask some questions," I said. "Something is really wrong here." He hung up. I didn't hear from him again for hours. The next morning, Ethan called me back. He sounded defeated. "Look, my mom, she's been freaking out. I don't think I can do this. She needs me here. I think we should just postpone everything." I couldn't even believe what I was hearing. Ethan, the man I loved, was willing to put our entire wedding on hold for a family emergency that didn't exist. "Are you seriously saying this to me right now?" I asked. "You're letting her manipulate you again. This is insane, Ethan. We've been planning this for months." "I know, but my dad's health, we don't know what's going to happen." I wanted to scream, but I kept my voice steady. "You're making excuses. Your father is fine. This isn't about him. It's about your mom controlling everything, like always." Silence. Then, a voice I had never heard before. "Maybe you're right. Maybe we should put this off." I felt my heart shatter, but I wasn't about to let him see how hurt I was. "I'm still getting married," I said, holding back the tears. "You can choose whether or not you'll be there, but I'm not canceling. I've waited too long." There was a long pause. He started, but I cut him off. "I'm going to Savannah. You can stay home if you want, but I'm getting married with or without you." I didn't hear from him again that night. I packed my things, booked my flight to Savannah, and made all the arrangements. I wasn't going to let his family ruin this for me. The next day, I posted a message to our guests, letting them know the wedding was still happening. No one was more surprised than my mom, who had to hustle to get everything ready without the help of Ethan's family. I didn't care. I was done letting his parents manipulate us. I was done waiting for their approval. The morning after that phone call, I woke up to radio silence from Ethan. No messages. No missed calls. Nothing. But guess who I did hear from? His mother. I was sipping my coffee, staring at my half-packed suitcase, when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Meredith. Meredith, we need to talk. Call me. I stared at the screen, debating whether to respond. Then, before I could decide, she called. I answered. Hello? There was a pause, and then I heard Meredith's sweet but fake voice. Dear, I know this is hard for you, but we need to be practical. This wedding is not happening right now. Ethan understands that. I need you to understand that too. I took a deep breath. Is Charles even sick? Silence. Then, a little scoff. He's recovering, she said vaguely. But that's not the point. Ethan needs to be with his family right now. It's just not the right time for a wedding. I wanted to scream, but I kept my voice calm. It's the perfect time for a wedding. Everything is planned. Guests are flying in. Deposits are paid. The only people who think it's not the right time are you. She sighed like I was a child who didn't understand life yet. Darling, marriage is about family. And you don't want to start your marriage by tearing Ethan away from his family, do you? I nearly laughed. That's rich, coming from the woman actively trying to ruin my wedding. She didn't like that. Her tone sharpened. You're being dramatic. If you love Ethan, you will understand that postponing is the mature choice. That's when I decided I was done. You know what, Meredith? I said, gripping my phone tighter. You can keep your son. But I'm keeping my wedding. And I hung up. The next day, I boarded my flight to Savannah. Alone. My mom and best friend, Julia, met me at the airport, and I could tell from their faces that they were ready to burn Ethan's family to the ground. What's the plan? Julia asked as we loaded my bags into her car. The wedding is still on, I said, my voice steady. I don't care what Ethan does anymore. If he shows up, fine. If he doesn't, fine. Julia let out a slow whistle. Damn. This is gonna be legendary. And she wasn't wrong. By that evening, word had spread. The wedding was happening with or without Ethan. Some people bailed, but to my surprise, most of our guests stayed. My mom's side of the family was fully on board. A few of Ethan's cousins, who clearly weren't as awful as his parents, also decided to stay. The only question left was, would Ethan show up? The next morning, the day before the wedding, my phone rang. It was Ethan. I let it ring twice before answering. Hello? There was a long pause. Then, finally, in a quiet, almost defeated voice, he said, I'm in Savannah. I sat up straight. You're here? Yeah. I'm at a hotel. His voice was shaky. I needed to think. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to ask what the hell took him so long. But instead, I took a deep breath and asked, are you coming to the wedding? Another pause. Then, I don't know. That was it. That was my breaking point. Then don't, I said. If you don't know by now, you don't deserve to be there. I hung up. I spent the rest of the day trying to shake off the conversation. I threw myself into last-minute details, trying to enjoy the people who were actually showing up for me. Then, that night, Julia came into my hotel room, looking pale. You need to see this, she said, handing me her phone. I took it, confused. But when I saw what was on the screen, my stomach dropped. It was a photo of Ethan, sitting at a fancy restaurant, in Savannah, with his parents. And right across from them, his ex-girlfriend. I stared at Julia's phone, my vision going blurry as I processed the image. Ethan, my fiancé, sitting with his parents and his ex-girlfriend at a fancy restaurant in Savannah, while I was here trying to hold together a wedding he clearly didn't give a damn about. Tell me this is old, I whispered. Julia's face was tight. It was taken tonight. My cousin's friend works at the restaurant and snapped it. Send it to me because, well, look. I zoomed in. Ethan's mother, Meredith, was smiling. Not just a polite smile, but that smug, satisfied smirk that said she had won. And Ethan? He looked miserable. But not miserable enough to leave. I threw the phone onto the bed and clenched my hands into fists. I'm done. Julia didn't say anything for a second. Then, with a dangerous glint in her eyes, she asked, so what's the move? I let out a slow breath, my heart pounding. I need to know the truth. I didn't sleep. Instead, I waited until midnight before grabbing my car keys and heading out. Julia, of course, was right behind me. Where are we going? I didn't answer. I just drove. I had a feeling I knew exactly where Ethan was staying. His parents had booked a luxury hotel for themselves, and knowing Meredith, she wouldn't have let Ethan stay anywhere less than 5 stars. When we pulled up to the entrance, Julia gave a low whistle. Classy. Hope they have good security, because I feel like you're about to commit a crime. I walked inside, my pulse hammering. The receptionist barely looked up as I strode to the elevators. I had no room key, no reservation. Nothing, just pure rage. But sometimes, when you look like you belong, no one stops you. I found their suite on the top floor. I raised my fist and banged on the door. Seconds later, the door opened, and there stood Ethan. Disheveled, confused, and, most importantly, guilty as hell. Explain. Now. What are you doing here? Ethan stammered. I pushed past him into the room, ignoring his weak attempt to stop me. And there, sitting on the couch with a glass of wine in her hand, was his ex-girlfriend, Claire. Meredith was beside her, her face an unreadable mask. Charles? He didn't even look up from his drink. I folded my arms. All right. Someone start talking. Claire looked amused, swirling her wine like this was a damn movie. I guess you found out, huh? Meredith sighed, standing up. This is exactly why I wanted Ethan to wait before marrying you. You're always so emotional. I ignored her and turned to Ethan. Explain. Now. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, looking exhausted. It's not what you think. Oh, I said, my voice sharp. Because it looks an awful lot like your parents dragged your ex here to convince you to back out of our wedding. Ethan shot a glare at his mother. I didn't know she was coming, all right? Mom just sprung this on me. Meredith sighed, shaking her head like I was a clueless child. Ethan, you need to be honest with her. A chill ran down my spine. Honest about what? Ethan squeezed his eyes shut. Then, finally, he spoke. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go through with the wedding. My whole body went cold. So you lied? I felt like the air had been sucked from the room. I swallowed hard. So, the hospital emergency? That was a lie. Ethan hesitated. Then, he nodded. I took a step back, shaking my head. I called the hospital, Ethan. I knew something was off, but I still gave you the benefit of the doubt. And all along, you were just, what? Hiding here with your parents while I planned a wedding you didn't even want. His voice broke. It's not like that. Meredith cut in, her voice smooth as silk. It's exactly like that. I turned on her, seeing red. You did this. She didn't even deny it. Instead, she smiled. Sweetheart, I did what was best for my son. That's when I lost it. Best for your son? I hissed. You manipulated him. You lied to him. You faked an emergency to keep him from marrying me. She sipped her wine. And it worked. At that moment, I knew the truth. Ethan wasn't some helpless victim in all of this. He had chosen to sit here, to let them play their games. He could have stood up to them. But he didn't. I turned back to him, my voice shaking. If you had doubts, why didn't you tell me? Why lie? Ethan finally met my eyes. Because I didn't want to hurt you. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Well, congratulations. You did anyway. I turned on my heel, ready to leave, but then Claire spoke up. Wait, don't you want to hear the best part? She said, grinning. I froze. What? She leaned forward, resting her chin on her hand. I'm moving back here. And Ethan and I are getting coffee tomorrow. Claire's words hung in the air like a guillotine blade. I'm moving back. And Ethan and I are getting coffee tomorrow. I didn't speak. I didn't move. I just stared at Ethan, waiting for him to deny it. To call Claire a liar. To say something, anything, that would prove I hadn't just wasted the last 2 years of my life on a man who was too much of a coward to love me back. He didn't. Instead, he opened his mouth and closed it. My stomach turned. Wow! My voice came out cold and hollow. So this was the plan all along? Claire smirked. I wouldn't say plan. More like an opportunity. Meredith sighed dramatically. Darling, let's not turn this into a scene. I whipped around. You stole my wedding, lied to your son, and dragged his ex-girlfriend into this, and you think I'm being dramatic? She tilted her head. You should be thanking me. I saved you from a lifetime of disappointment. Something inside me snapped. I turned back to Ethan. Do you love me? His lips parted. But the answer didn't come fast enough. That hesitation? That was my answer. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. That's all I needed to know. Then, I took off my engagement ring, grabbed his hand, and shoved it into his palm. He flinched like it burned him. Congratulations, Meredith, I said, my voice shaking. You won. Your son is still your pathetic little puppet. You get to control his life for a little longer. But let me tell you something, I took a step closer, staring her down. One day, he's going to realize what you've done to him. He's going to wake up and see that you've ruined every real relationship he's ever had. And when that day comes, you won't be able to lie your way out of it. I turned to Ethan, my heart hammering. And you? You will never be happy. Because as long as you let her pull your strings, you will never be your own man. Ethan swallowed hard, his jaw tight. But he didn't say a word. Not one. And that hurt more than anything else. I turned on my heel and stormed out. I barely made it to the hotel parking lot before the adrenaline wore off and the reality hit me like a truck. The wedding was off. The man I thought I would spend the rest of my life with had never really been mine. I leaned against the car, shaking, as Julia caught up to me. Holy shit, she breathed. Are you okay? I let out a short, bitter laugh. Not even close. She sighed, squeezing my shoulder. Well, for what it's worth. That was the most badass exit I've ever seen. I wiped at my eyes. Let's go. We drove back to the hotel in silence. By the time we got to my room, I already had texts from dozens of people who had heard the news. My mom, my cousins, guests, even some of Ethan's relatives who had been on my side the entire time. But the one text I wasn't expecting? Ethan, can we talk? I stared at the screen. My hands trembled. I wanted to ignore it. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. But I needed closure. So I texted back. Me, hotel lobby. Now, when I walked into the lobby, Ethan was already there, sitting in the corner, his head in his hands. He looked up when I approached, his eyes bloodshot. I messed up. I sat down, keeping my face unreadable. Yeah, you did. He exhaled shakily. I wasn't lying about Claire. I didn't know she was coming. That was all my mom. I raised a brow. And the fake emergency? He winced. He swallowed. I didn't know what to do. My mom kept telling me we weren't ready, that I'd regret it. And I started thinking, what if she was right? I clenched my fists under the table. So you lied instead of talking to me? He nodded, shame flickering across his face. I didn't want to hurt you. I let out a hollow laugh. Congratulations, Ethan. You failed. He flinched. I love you. I shook my head. No, you don't. You love pleasing your mother. You love avoiding conflict. You love the idea of us, but not enough to fight for it. His face crumpled. I don't know how to fix this. I stood up, staring down at him. You don't, I said quietly. Because I'm done. I turned and walked away, for the last time. The next day, instead of walking down the aisle, I spent the morning reclaiming my happiness. Instead of sobbing in my hotel room, I threw on a sundress, grabbed my friends, and celebrated. We had brunch. We drank champagne. And when the afternoon sun hit just right, we took wedding photos anyway, just without the groom. Because screw it. I looked amazing, and I deserved to remember this moment for me. Later that evening, as I sat by the hotel pool, my mom sat beside me, squeezing my hand. I'm proud of you, she said softly. I smiled. Me too. And for the first time in weeks, I actually meant it. Ethan never showed up at the wedding venue. Days later, I'd heard from a mutual friend that he went back home with his parents. Claire? She left town 2 weeks later. He never fought for me. And honestly, that told me everything I needed to know. Because I deserved someone who chose me without hesitation. And now? I was free to go find him.